Hello everyone. So, my name is Simon. I'm a BTrust grantee working on Stratum V2. So today we're gonna do basic coverage about mining and what Stratum V2 has to do with mining.
Maybe you can do it from the laptop.
Yeah. Maybe click this link.
Try.
Yeah. It's good. Yes. So this is what we're gonna cover. I'm gonna try and keep it short and simple, but you get the concept. So we're gonna do basic mining, how miners talk to pools, centralization, and what Stratum V2 is bringing to this. So let's get
Sorry,
see the battery.
Try again?
Yeah, just click on this line.
I did?
Okay. Yeah. So mining basics. So how many of you know what goes on when you do a Bitcoin transaction? Who knows who controls the transactions you're sending? So this is a big question. So whenever you're doing a Bitcoin transaction, you never really have control of, is my transaction gonna be forwarded or not? And here's where our pools come into play. So Bitcoin mining started with Satoshi, that's 2009. So firstly, Satoshi mined with the CPU, and then a gamer discovered, oh, I can use a shovel instead of using a spoon to mine. So the GPU was it. And then an FPGA was introduced. This was never really used because it was complex. So most miners didn't want to spend time coding the board. And then in 2012, the big excavator came, which is the ASICs. So ASICs, they do 200 trillion calculations per second. So that became, it made life much harder for the CPU guys and the GPU guys, so they had to step down. And up to now, ASICs is the real game, and the main leader is Bitmain. I'm sure you've heard of it. So we're in the ASIC era. So these chips are application specific. So they target the SHA-256 of Bitcoin. So what mining is, it's basically a lottery. I like to call it that way. So it's about who guesses the correct number that contains the winning block. So for the technical people, so a block header is an 80 bytes of data. Then we have nonce for those who played the game. So we'll see how the extra nonce came into play. So this is how a block header looks like. So we have the version, the previous block hash, the Merkle root, timestamp and difficulty bits, and the nonce at the bottom. So the Merkle is what determines the transactions or what the block looks like. So a change in any, so this is how it looks like. So you start with the transaction, then you hash it, and then it goes back to the Merkle tree. So in case any transaction is deleted from this, it changes the whole concept. So this is what controls this is where the block control happens. Here we have the mining loop. So the block header, you get work from the pool, you work towards getting the nonce. So if the hash is less than target, you submit to pool. And it's a repeated, what do you call it? It's an on-repeat work, monotonous. So you're doing the same thing daily. And here's where ASICs do it best. They can do this, they can do a billion transactions or guesses in a second. And then we have the nonce problem. So 4 bytes is equals to like 4 billion combinations, 4.3. And the solution came in when pools introduced extra nonce. So an extra nonce gives you another 4.3 billion chances. So whenever you include an extra nonce while you're doing your computation, in total you have like around 8.6 billion tries to winning. Then we have the share difficulty. So this is easier. So share difficulty is about the shares you're submitting to a pool. So most miners mine to a pool vis-a-vis solo mining. And pools pay you per the share you're giving to them. So the more shares you give, the more your earnings. So why pool exists? So take a picture of you trying to mine alone. It might take you 700 years. But if you join a bigger or a medium pool, it only takes 20 minutes. So for solo mining, it's a lottery ticket, but for pool mining, it's a steady paycheck. So you're paid every share you give. So for most miners, they consider this pool mining because they want to earn each day. So this is how pools work. Miners point to a pool, and the pool is connected to the Bitcoin network. So once the pool wins, it shares the block reward with the miners. So pool basically aggregates the hash rate and shares the reward. So for pool payment, so these are the accounting or payment ways. So you have the FPPS, so paid per share, and then you have the full pay per share. Here's where the pool takes the risk, but once they win, they take what's in there. So majority of pools use this. So most miners don't know how much fee the pool collected. So the pool pays you prior to winning a block. So they're taking that risk. And then we have the pay per end shares. So this one is medium. It's both of you taking the risk, the miner and the pool. So this is the FPPS. So this caters for 70% of the hash rate. So whether we're talking hand pool, Foundry, all these big guys, Luxor. So as long as you're pointing hash rate to them, you're getting paid. But then you never really know what's in your block. So they only hand you the work, and then you work on the work. So you never get to decide what transactions are included in this block. So mining protocol, this is just a language. So the pool tells the miner, here's the work. The miner says, I found something. And the pool says, the miner hands over. And the pool says, good job, or not valid. So it's basically a language or a way for miner and pool to communicate. So that's the language. And then currently this is the majority, Stratum V1. So miner speaks, they talk via the TCP socket, which is the default Bitcoin one. So this is what a Stratum V1 message looks like. It's a JSON, so it's text-based, no encryption, and the pool controls everything. So the bad thing about this is, so there's no encryption, so your ISP can see it, the government can see it. Then you run the risk of hash rate hijacking, because there's no authentication. Lastly, JSON is inefficient. So JSON eats up or chews up a lot of bandwidth. And then lastly, the pool controls the template. So the template is something that's never spoken about. So miners just get the template, do the work, get rewards. That's what most miners do. But this is a critical point that we never really talk about. So the next bit is the centralization problem. So if you look at this statistic, it's a handful of big pools. And what does this mean to Bitcoin? So in as much as we say Bitcoin is decentralized, this is a red herring. In that, if government forced these 10 pools to sanction transactions, it means Bitcoin is no longer decentralized. So it means you'll find transactions from certain regions are not being included in the new blocks. So that means there's no transaction propagation. And this has been a big discussion. So if you do a proper analysis, you'll see a lot of these pools depend on the ant pool block template. So they are all leveraging ant pool. And this is what Stratum V2 is trying to counter. So the censorship threats, so it's already happening. So if you look at mining protocol.observe, you'll see how he analyzes, like he can show before expected block transactions, and then the last one, the transactions that were confirmed. So he always states like these were the sanctioned transactions. So it's called mining.observe. So I talked about 51% being a red herring. So people talk about hash power taking out Bitcoin, but it's really about transactions you control that go into a block. I think that's the critical bit we never talk about. So the real world evidence, so Bitmain, using the FPPS, so that's a tax slavery. So they pay you, but you never really earn fully from the actual wins. So let's say you're dictating the transactions that are going into the block, and we know each transaction has a fee. So as a miner, you get to earn the full fee. But with the current model, the pool gets everything. So you can check out mempool.space/stratum. So this is the template problem. So miner has no input when it comes to transaction. So the pool has full control. And here's where we bring in Stratum V2. So it's trying to redesign how do miners get back the control for transactions? How do they dictate their block templates? So these are the improvements. So from JSON it sends binaries. So binaries are 70% more efficient and lighter than a JSON file. There's encryption. So this means your ISP doesn't know what transactions you're transmitting. And then there's authentication. So this shows that you own. So no one can hijack your hash rate. So if they don't have your key, they can't really tamper with your hash rate. And then there's bandwidth. So bandwidth, SV2 takes less bandwidth. That's making it less latency. So it reduces your latency in terms of broadcasting and processing of blocks. So these are the sub-protocols. So we have the mining protocol, which deals with the distribution, shares submission. We have the job declaration. So miners declare their own block templates. So this is what brings about the decentralization feature. Then you have the template distribution. So efficiency and updates. So low latency block propagations. So SP2 roles. So the mining device is dealing with the miner. the translation proxy. This means your already existing miners. Translation proxy translates it now to SV2. So that means you don't have to buy new miners. So you can plug it into your existing binding farm. Then you have the template provider. So this is what talks to the Bitcoin node. And here is where you get your custom block template. Then you have the pool server. It's the hash rate aggregator. And lastly, the job declarator server. So this accepts jobs. So SV2 types. So you have the standard. So this is still controlled by the pool. What you get from the standard channels is encryption. And then you have the extended channel. So here's where the miner controls everything. Like you build the block from scratch. So part 5 is no need for new firmware. So SV2 solves this by having the translator proxy. Because a lot of miners, the reason why miners don't tend to adopt new protocols is that there's always a firmware compatibility issue. They don't want to install new things in their farms or in their mining sites. So the less work, the better for them. So that's the translator proxy. So your ASIC, which is a V1, translates the whatever message is being sent by your miner into an SV2. So if you're pointing to an SV2 compatible pool with an SV1, so it makes sure there's no barrier in terms of how they're communicating. So you get SV2 benefits without a firmware update. So this is the most common configuration. So whereby you have your SV1 setup, the translator, and then you're pointing now to one SV2 pool. So why you need this? So as I was saying, you already have your existing. You don't want to change what you already have. So you just want to plug in to what you already have and receive the SV2 benefits. So these are the configurations. I'm just gonna go through them a bit fast. So A is whereby you're dealing with SV2. So it means you have, yeah. So for A, it's pure SV2. So SV2 servers to SV2 miners to SV2 pool. So the pool still controls the template. In configuration 2, the miner controls the template. Configuration C, pool controls template. So no firmware needed, no firmware update needed. And then D, this is where we call the sovereign miners. So you control everything. And still there's no need for firmware update. So D is the full version. So here's where you run your own node, you do your own pool. Like basically, we've seen this before, I think with Apollo, the Apollo stack, if you've heard of that miner. So it allows you to like mine on your own node. So this is our job declaration flow. So you have your Bitcoin node, it gets, I want to mine on this template, then we have the JDS pool. So the template is, if the template is valid, you go ahead. And then the miner, so it works on your own template. And shares found is equals to pool credits, your hash rate. So what is our what JDS validates? So it checks transactions are valid, checks the Coinbase pays pool correctly, and it ensures there is no double spend or malformed data. So SV2 is not a silver bullet. So FPPS is still dominant in the market. And in order to counter this, we need to have more pools adopting SV2. So SV2 makes decentralization possible. So the Bitmain problem. So Bitmain does the miner production and the firmware, which is not open source. So what most people do is just buy the miner, you never really know what the firmware has, and just point it to a pool. But now with SV2, it helps in the translation, like it's helping equalize that. So you don't need to know what the Bitmain miner is running, but then you can use SV2 to control your transactions and what you mine. So current pools that support. So for pools you have brains, demand, and more are incoming. So we're gonna see more pools starting to adopt SV2 and bringing back the power to miners. So firmwares that support that, we have the Brain OS and the translation proxy. This is open source, so if you want to see it or to run it, you can access it on GitHub or the Stratum protocol.org website. So getting started, it's as easy as plugging it into your existing miners. So what you need to run is the translator proxy, which connects to an SV2 pool. But if you want to go full, so this discourages a lot of miners, the config D, because most miners don't want to run their own full Bitcoin node. They just want to point and shoot. Like, they just want to put in their addresses and start earning. So if you give them the config D, you kind of have issues with that. So config C works. And so these are the resources, in case you're interested to learn more. And yeah, thank you. Any questions?
Just one question. What is the incentive to run option C? Because you still have V1 traffic between your proxy and the actual ASICs. So why would you do that instead of pointing it to V1 pool, pointing to V2?
So with the option C, you're getting less bandwidth. So you're
in between the translator proxy and the pool, right?
Like it makes your latencies less.
Don't you have still the same latency between the miner and the proxy?
No.
Okay.
Since you're transmitting smaller bandwidth or smaller jobs.
Okay. The ASIC miner talks to the translator.
Yeah, to the
V1,
translator. Yeah.
Which is the same bandwidth as before.
Yeah,
So
but
it's just co-location that's closer.
No, it reduces the bandwidth. So if you had like, let's say 16 MB.
Yep.
So when it goes to the SV2, it's compressed into a binary.
No, I understand that.
Yeah.
But how does it talk to the translator proxy? That's still V1, the old bandwidth, right?
Yeah. So the translator picks the SV1 and then now translates it into an SV2.
I get that.
Then now forwards it. Yeah.
But there's still that big traffic between the miner and the translator proxy.
Not really.
Unless it's in the same machine.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's
in the
installed
same
on the
machine.
miner.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
On your Linux machine that you're running.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Also got a question, but it's probably very basic. I'm not a miner or anything like that.
Yeah.
You were talking about connecting a miner to a pool.
Yes.
You said you get paid every 20 minutes, and it depends on your share that you're giving to the pool.
Yes.
Is it one miner and I connect to a pool, then when that pool hits a block, then they split that reward between everyone in the pool? Is that the same share that you get?
Yes, depending.
Okay.
So there are various payment methods. So some pools you pay you even before they hit a block. But when they hit a block, they take the whole amount.
Okay.
But then some pools, they take the 50-50. So all of you are taking a risk. So that's the pool that awards you as part of the share you get to in that block.
Yes. And if you solar mine, you said it takes about 700 years, more or less. What if you solar mine with a nerd miner?
So they usually say approximation of 700 years, but over the past 2 years we've seen BTrust. So you've heard of
Yeah,
BTrust?
yes. They look quite
So we've seen at least 5 guys going home with a block each.
wow.
So
Get a couple of BitX miners.
yeah.
Okay. Awesome, thanks so much.
Any other question?
So how do we know on that pool scenario what we do as that mining worth the whole effort? Is there something to measure to say you spend this much, this is how long it's going to take, and do we have an estimate of that share income?
I think, can you, excuse me, is it possible to open Stratum protocol.org? So the main reason being pushed for Stratum V2, it's increasing your profitability. So you're able to like, by the time SV1 is doing the first broadcast, you've done like 10 broadcasts. So that's increasing your chances.
Yeah.
So your miners are mining at a faster rate as compared to the V1, because V1 is slow by nature. So in SV2, it's increasing how fast your machine is generating the predictions. So if you're doing like 1,000 predictions in 1 minute, it means you have higher chances than someone who's doing 10 predictions in 1 minute.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. And it depends on the pool that how many miners are attached to a pool, or
Yeah, also the miners.
that in the pool
That increases how fast you can go through the nonce range.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I asked an item, were you ready?
Yeah.
When was it go? Thing. Which one?
Do you have a browser?
I want to go to the website.
The website.
Oh.
This one.
So that means people are switching to SV2 because of the efficiency.
Yes.
So
It's big.
Yeah, that one.
this one.
So the website explains more on what you're gaining by plugging in SV2. Tilde.org, not every it's tilde.org. That's being counted as part of the thing. So if you're submitting many and it wins a block, it means you're winning more than someone who's submitting maybe one share in every 10 minutes. Everybody is definitely winning something there, or some of them won't get anything? Yeah, some people don't get anything, depending on the pool you're connected to. I think you can try out, Brains already has SV2 in it, so you can try them out, or demand. Yeah, Brains.
Like,
Cloud mining? Or
like the
no, this one you can run it in your own server. So you point your miners to the I think the internet is slow. But yeah, so if you're a miner, I think you can keep in touch with me. So I'm trying to build a plug and play. Even as I work on Stratum V2, so something like is lightweight because miners don't want the friction. Because friction brings losses. So from talking to the miners I've talked to so far. So they want something they can just plug and play their existing hardware. So yeah, we can keep in touch. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.